As we continue our look into Ableton Live's integrated software instruments, next we're going to take a look at the Operator FM synthesizer. Now if you're following along with the project files, again we're starting with the empty or new start of instrument demo. And we're going to look now at this track that is for pitched instruments. I'm going to my device browser and I'm going to have Operator and drag it over on top of this track and release. Now if you don't have Operator available over here, let's go look at our preference and explore this. Live, Preferences, and here under Authorizations and Trial. Several of the instruments that are available to an Ableton Live 7 user cost an additional fund. These are Operator, Sampler, Electric, Tension, and Analog. Now as you can tell probably from looking at this, I have Operator and Sampler purchased, but I'm using Electric, Tension, and Analog as trial. So once I do that, I lose my ability to save. Now if you don't have availability for these instruments, you want to check those out. You can try all Ableton software instruments for a 30-day free period by clicking yes on this button. You can further go back to Ableton Live and temporarily get a serial number that will allow you to save and export for 30 days. Notice it says to restart live after you enable one of these trial versions. Okay, I'm going to hide my preferences and return back to the demo. Now I've got my Operator in place. I'm going to hide the browser up here on the upper left, and here we see the Operator in place down here. Now I've opened up the info view so we can get extra information as I go along if you want to take a peek at that. We have basically 8 zones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as we move around between these zones, what we see and have access to in the center changes. Okay, so now Operator uses a type of synthesis called frequency modulation, or FM. So if we come over here and we take a peek, what we want to look at now is this algorithm structure. To start with, I'm going to choose the 4 side by side, so simply click on this and it becomes the structure. And now we can hear how it works. I'm going to bring down my master volume and talk over this. As I play a key on my keyboard, we hear just this oscillator A. If I turn up the volume for B, I'll get that one. Now it's the same tuning as 1, so if I change it from 1 to 2 on the chorus, we can start to hear a difference. I'm going to add these together like they were mixed together. And now going to D and turning it up. Back down a little. Now these sync together exactly in sync when you want them to, and now they're mixing together side by side. Where FM really cuts in is when you stack them on top of each other. So anytime we go to any other formation than the 4 on the bottom, we're using them to interact with each other's. The 1 on top always interact with the ones on the bottom. So here we see 3 on top interacting with 1 on bottom. Here we see the opposite. We see 1 on top that can interact with each of these 3. So let's listen now. Side by side. Let's go to the most drastic, which is these interacting with each other in a chain-like fashion. And we immediately hear quite a bit more harmonics or thickness to the sound. And that's what we get when we change these different structures. And then when we change these levels, we change the amount of interaction. So if I pull back C, it'll affect B and A less. Let's do that now. And going back to our tree, notice that D comes through C, so to speak. So if I pull back C's influence on A and B, because D is secondary, it also gets less strength or influence on the waveform. So by changing these different algorithm structures, as they're called, you can get different tones. A great way to explore. So each of these oscillators over here has separate parameters. Let's go back over here now to this tree, and I'm going to turn off B and C. So now only D is affecting A. And notice as I bring down this volume, we get less interaction. As I bring it up, we get more. By changing this tuning over here, we get different sets of harmonic comparts. So the relationship between these two and their tuning affects the overtones or the richness of the sound. Let's pull this down to 1 now, so it's basically the same. D and A are the same. So if I slightly change the fine tuning, we get a wobbling effect. It gets faster as you go higher. Now there's a lot to explore here, and it's a lot more complicated, but that's a quick look. Over here we have an LFO, and notice when I select it, this enter box is grayed out. It's because the LFO is not enabled. I'm clicking here to turn it on and off. The same goes true for a filter and for this pitch envelope here. Now notice we can route some of these things back to other devices, like we can send this to the LFO. We can send the LFO to the filter. We can only send the LFO to A if we want to. So there's quite a bit of expression and exploration to be had inside Operator. Again, the manual is very good at supporting your exploration on this, and I hope you'll take some time to look further at this strong FM synthesizer that you can have with Ableton Live called Operator.